Okay, so today is going to look a little bit like this. First, I'd like to start with a quiz. Who's wearing clean clothes today? Put your hand up. All right. How many of you cleaned it yourself? By hand? Okay. And that's why. The beauty is automation. Now, just a little bit about myself. I've previously worked in CERN, doing medical devices as well, some high-performance computing, and then also spent a little bit of time working on smart locks. But now I've come back to work in a hospital. And here I'm essentially helping out the people that will take care of you if you get sick. So let's talk a little bit about curiosity. Does anybody know what this is, by the way? Where is it? Yeah, so that's where I grew up. And as you can imagine, it rains a lot, so you spend a lot of time indoors. And what I used to do was to just go around looking for things. And my dad's a chemist, which basically means that when you look around enough, you find things like this, which then lead on to that. And all of a sudden, as a child, you're like, well, what does that do, right? How exciting is that? The one that really takes the biscuit is this particular one. Does anybody know what that is? It's a slide rule. It allows you to do very complex multiplications and divisions by adding or subtracting in logarithmic scale. And obviously, as a child, I had no idea. But when I asked my dad, I was like, what is it? What is it good for? And he told me, well, look, when the NASA was trying to take a man to the moon, this is what they used. So imagine the responsibility of getting the calculations right. And so all of this leads on to discovery. And in order to get there, you need to have that childlike wonder of, what is this all about? And if you don't know, this is Randy Pauch, a very famous and well-spoken computer scientist, so I recommend you read up about it. Now, in terms of personality, some of you might think that I'm a little special. But I can tell you, my mom's a psychologist, and she used to have a lot of these lying around, and every now and then we would take some of these. So as you can imagine, I've taken a few, so I officially can say my mom had me tested. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between tasks and jobs. So who knows what that is, right? Everybody's had one, played around with that. And most of the time, you use it in a Walkman rather than sitting at home. And you rely on batteries. Now, batteries were costly, so what do? Something cheaper. And here, then, we go on to delegation. And that's the slight difference between a job and a task. So imagine you have an older brother and older sister, and you're like, hey, do you want to do this? So yeah, you go, OK. So then now your first job. And then that means that every now and then you get to listen to some of her or his music. And in terms of reward, that's what you care about. So let's imagine that a year goes on, and after that, he or she gets a Discman. So now you're out of a job because you don't have to wind anything. Now there's a benefit, and is that you can get all of this for free. She passes it on to you. So you might have no job, but you have some of the rewards. And it's all about an automated task. That's the difference. So let's talk a little bit about statistics. This person here, Hans Rosling, he's made wonderful presentations about statistics of the world and how things work and evolve over time. And I want to talk about that as well. The life expectancy of all of us around here has been growing steadily for years. However, the fertility has been going down, which then leads to this geographical pyramid becoming a tower, right? So you have a lot of people at the top. And in essence, this has resulted in a decrease of dependence. So as a working person, you have maybe some children, and you have some parents or grandparents to take care of. So because the number of children has been reducing, that's been going down. But surely now there's more and more elderly people, and it's going back up again. However, and this is where it gets, unfortunately, pretty dire, is that the number of beds per unit of population has been going down, not just in Western countries, but also worldwide will also most likely follow suit. which results in this. You might have a surgery that's been scheduled for you for months. You're waiting for it, you depend on it, but because there's not enough beds that day, because there's been a car accident in the road and they need the beds, they can delay you. They need to call you and let you know that it won't be happening today. And this happens often. So only patients that are already there get to use them. Now, let's talk about you. What are you going to do about it? Because if we don't do something, this could get quite messy. So this is me. This is my life in weeks. Every single square is a week. And that's where I am today, here at TEDx. But what are you going to do, right? We have a limited amount of time where we are productive and have everything going for us. We're not unhealthy. We have our time. So I want you to think about that. And it might feel like this now, but please, every now and then, I hope you can stop and have a break and think of the future. So pick an area. Health, education, food, shelter, the basics. Energy, we've talked about this before. And do the right thing. And then do the thing right. So with this, I want to take you on to something that my mum used to tell me when I was little. We used to talk about, oh, what do you want to do when you're older? She said, well, do something that will be needed in a time of war. And this was inspired because of the whole Spanish legacy of the Civil War. But where are we today, right? Does anybody know where that is? That is the Syrian-Turkish border in 2009. And look at it now. All of those little dots are abandoned cars of people who were fleeing war and had to cross. I would suggest we should be focusing on working on something that will prevent wars. How do we do that? We focus on the basics. Make sure that everybody's covered. You worry about cost? Well, automate. And with this, there'll be some people that are a little bit skeptical, right? There's always 1 or 2, or maybe 1 or 2 million, who knows? So let's take it to basics, right? So we've got this population pyramid, and they'll say, well, there's all this AI stuff and automation things is new, so surely it's quite weird. So I am, this age, so that's what I worry about. But then that leads on people saying, well, if we have AI and we have many, many, many versions of it working in a job that I'm doing, it's going to be like having a lot of competition. So all the jobs are going to go away, right? AI is going to be stealing our jobs. That's the central narrative that you keep hearing day in and day out. Journalists are working population again. They focus on them. So it's important to remember that AI is a bit like mushrooms. You have some dangerous ones, but you also have some good ones. So let's not decide we shouldn't have mushrooms. Let's just pick the right ones. So what do you do instead? We should focus on things that are practical, right? Imagine you go to the bank, and you want to go there at a particular time of the day when you're free, and you've just finished your work, so it's maybe like 6 or something, but it's closed. Why? Because they work the same hours as you. So we need to find a solution for that. So out-of-hours support. You pick up the phone, you want to get a mortgage or something, and you're like, well, I would like to apply, this is my information. Why do you need to be speaking to a human, right? Somebody else can be at home having dinner with the family rather than sitting in an office talking to you. And what if you are sick and don't want to leave the house, right? You speak to a doctor, same thing, far away. So again, there'll be some skeptics. And they'll be saying that we'll steal your jobs. But the most important thing is that it's not about you. It's about them. The children and the elderly people. They need your help. They need all the help they can get because a lot of them can't fend for themselves. So why not? So I would suggest that if we're going to focus on any automation, on any AI, at least your personal choice, it would be nice if it was to help. So help in healthcare, help as a tutor in school. Why not? You're doing your homework and your parents can't help because they don't know about the topic or they just have to work. They're on the phone talking to you at the bank. So you can speak to a tutor. But a lot of the time, most people don't really have the insight to trust AI. So I'm just going to give a little bit of a coverage of that. Let's talk about the potential. Same as the slight rule, this has the potential to take us to the next step. And it starts with something like this. You tag it, you define what each thing is, and then the AI can go, oh, OK, well, I'll take this and I'll categorize it, and I will store it somewhere. And then after that, you have specific sections for different functions. But imagine that, for example, you as yourself are somebody that's pretty happy. But at some point in your life, you get really sad. It happens to all of us. And then the AI is sort of prodding you and be like, be happy now, be happy now. No, you can't have that. You need empathy. And you only get that by having somebody who feels the same way you do, who's been there and recognizes that. So I propose that we need a motive AI as well. Maybe not right now, but soon. And you need the full spectrum, all the different gamuts of feelings. Making sure that it's kind, it's not going to get angry and take over the world. So we need to think about that. Still, there'll be some skeptics. They'll say, well, in the future, there's only going to be certain types of jobs around AI. The people that build it, the people that train it, and the one that have to do what the AI decides. I think it can get better. But however, we've seen this. In the past, humans used to do everything from A to B, do the whole task. But then now, certain types of business models, you put in a lot of software that takes a lot of decisions. The person only does a tiny little bit. What happens if the AI decide this task is not for you? You need to go begging to the AI to give you that particular task, that particular job, because you want to make some money. So in order to compensate for that, I think that we should build AI that has enough emotional and sentiment analysis to recognize what you're feeling and to adapt to that, to understand and to mirror to how you're feeling. So looking forward, Alan Turing, famous mathematician, helped win Second World War. He was also thinking about human-like AI, and he invented the Turing test. It's a test whereby if you're speaking to something, you can't tell if it's a machine or a human, right? And then Steve Jobs came along and in 1983 said, well, how about one day we build a system that allows you to have a conversation with someone like Aristotle? So in order to do that, we need to then scratch the Turing test and aim for the Alan test, where we know it's him. And you can't tell if it's your friend Alan or a computer, just representing Alan. I think, well, what's that useful for? Well, the true human-like AI could do this. You might have lost your grandfather a couple of years ago, but one day you decide you want to have a conversation with him. He's still there. You can still call him. He can still give you advice on how to do things in school. So overall, if you want to write something, pass a message, you write a book. If you want to say something, you just record it. If you want to share an image, you take a camera. But if you think of something, one day it'll be stored in AI. So AI, I believe, is a medium. A bit like the internet and so on, you will have a medium to communicate, and it's up to us to decide what we do with it. So what's next? A lot of people get worried about robots taking over the world. One day, they might do, but not just yet. So like the washing machine, some of the automation solutions are hardware dependent. And some of those are software only. You click a button in a browser, you haven't really had to buy a new piece of machine just to do that. And then on the top, we have the AI that's supposed to learn and keep learning and learn for itself. But then we still have some handcrafted and coded solutions where every single script needs to be done by a human. So on the bottom left corner, you have bumps and speed limitations. But on the top, it's like the Autobahn in Germany. There's no speed limit. You can do whatever you want and go for it. But we need to be careful. There's some human jobs there too. So I believe that humans are tool builders, and as such, we'll end up doing things that are very useful to us with it. And I believe that we should be focusing on AI helper. I'm not saying everybody, but if you're looking for inspiration, I think this is a pretty good one. So when you were a child in school, you probably started a conversation with, what's your name? And then, do you want to play? And then you go to university, it gets a little bit more serious. You go, what's your name? What do you study? And then you become an adult. And then you say, what's your name and what do you do? Where there's no reason why it should be like that. When we automate, we'll get a lot of our time back. And I believe that we should probably go from what do you do to what are you studying? And hey, do you want to play? So the final quiz. Does anybody know what this is? This is a pneumatic message tube that was used in the New York Library to send messages up and down, to say somebody requested a book, the people working downstairs go and pick it up. And over here is a very similar system in Paris in the 60s, not that long ago. This worked so well that Paris was one of the last cities in Europe to have full adoption of the telephone. So I would say adapt faster than you want to. Now, given that we're hopefully not that afraid of the new anymore, I would say, well, this is the old type of code. You know, people are getting used to recognizing this. Everything's controlled and color-coded. And AI is a bit like a black box. So I'd say, well, prepare for that. If you want to get involved in this, go meet some friends that have the same ideas, want to do that. Plan your route. And there'll be some moments where you can't really see the end of it, but one day you will. And hopefully, by then, you build something that other people can use, even if they're not an expert. Thank you very much. Thanks.